You walked into this one expecting a tale about Joe Burrow's comeback. The cautious optimism, the careful toe-taped steps back into a spotlight he owns, and left with a different kind of story entirely. A defense that decided to stop apologizing and start collecting mistakes like trophies. Burrow came back and did what he does. He kept the offense moving and made throws you trust when the game tightens. But the real drama of the night wasn't how the Bengals threw the ball. It was how they took the ball. 5 times, loud and decisive, and turned Baltimore's mistakes into a 32-14 win that felt like a season restart. From the first snap, you could see it. Burrow had that measured look. He was wearing a carbon fiber plate in his cleat, the small mechanical reminder that he was coming off surgery. A little armor for a guy who makes a living in the gap between precision and violence. He finished 24 of 46 for 261 yards and 2 touchdowns, numbers that read fine on paper but don't capture the steadiness he brought back to a locker room that had been waiting. He took the field like someone who'd been asked to lead a late-inning comeback and believed he could and did. And yet, if you're making the highlight reel, don't start with his throws. Start with the first strip sack. Joseph Ossai didn't just chase down Lamar Jackson. He ripped the ball from him at the Baltimore 6-yard line and flipped the script. A strip in the opening frame is one thing, a message, a mood setter. The Bengals followed that tone. Jackson turned the ball over again in the second quarter, and in between, Isaiah Likely fumbled through the back of the end zone after Jordan Battle made a play on the ball. By halftime, it felt like the Ravens were handing the Bengals a script that was embarrassingly easy to read. Here's the brutal iron law of football. Turnovers aren't just unlucky numbers, they're momentum avalanches. Cincinnati had been statistically one of the worst teams at forcing takeaways coming into this night. They'd managed only 10 turnovers in the first 11 games. Suddenly, in one primetime performance, they forced 5. Not flashes, not a couple of broken plays, 5 full-throttle, game-changing extra possessions. That's not luck. That's an explosive night from a defense that found teeth and used them. The Bengals defense didn't just force turnovers. It made Baltimore play a version of the game they didn't prepare for. Lamar Jackson, who's been a human blender when healthy, finished 17 of 32 for 246 yards with an interception and no touchdown passes. When a quarterback who built his career on improvisation gets stripped, pressured, and picked off, that's not just poor play. That's a unit imposing itself on the narrative. Myles Murphy got in on the fun late, tipping a red zone attempt that Demetrius Knight Jr. scooped and returned 39 yards. Jalen Davis ripped the ball from Zay Flowers on another play, and the Ravens were left replaying mistakes instead of sewing together drives. You could feel the weirdness in the first half. The Bengals took the giveaways and, in a nod to the maddening habit of many teams, didn't always convert them into touchdowns. They had first and goal from the 2 after Ossai's strip and came away with just 3 points. That's a lesson you file away for later. Against better defenses, you can't leave points on the table and expect turnovers to save you. But on this night, the Bengals made up for it in other ways, chiefly with Evan McPherson, who made 6 field goals. 6. 31, 42, 24, 33, 52, 41. Those aren't consolation kicks. They're a steady, surgical cashing in of every chance the defense produced. The third quarter felt like the turning point, the part where Burrow's steady hand met the defense's fever. He hit Tanner Hudson on a slick, one-handed 14-yard touchdown that looked like something you'd study in clutch throw highlights. Later in the period, he found Andre Iosivas on a 29-yard dart, a play that felt smart and simple and utterly effective, taking advantage of a mismatch and letting the ball do what it always does in his hands: travel to the place his receiver can win. Those throws gave Cincinnati breathing room and let McPherson's leg close the windows. And then there's the ugly poetry of statistics. Baltimore hadn't lost 4 fumbles in a game since 2007, and on this night, by mid-third, the modern streak was over. Football's a contact sport that rewards the team that makes the fewest handoffs to chance. The Bengals smashed the coin toss against fate and came out ahead. This win also mattered for the standings and for confidence. Cincinnati, coming off a 4-game skid and a season that had felt deflated, looked like it woke up. They dragged the Ravens, a team that had been rolling and sitting comfortably, down into the mud and made them fumble for the map. The Bengals are still hardly perfect. They've been gashed at times, inconsistent at others. But when your two-time comeback player of the year returns and your defense decides to hunt, you get nights like this, nights that feel salvational. There's a human texture to it too. Burrow taking shoes off between series to swap for comfort. That's the tiny human detail that tells you how fragile elite performance can be. The players who force turnovers, Ossai, Battle, Knight Jr., Davis, they'll remember this film. It's the tape you rewatch to remind yourself what you can do when the chips are down. It's also the tape coaches use as a template. Pressure early, force mistakes, and let your kicker be the closer. Practical, ugly, and effective. Baltimore's narrative took a hit not just statistically, but psychologically. Lamar's missing a rhythm, his health a whisper in the room. And when a playmaker gets rattled by repeated strips and tips, it's not just one night. It's a confidence tax that the league applies incrementally. They'll regroup. They'll point to missed opportunities and a couple of calls. But the truth is simple. The Bengals made plays where it mattered. If you want a final image, hold on to the quiet, absurdly consequential sound of a stadium hearing an opponent's cleats scuff the turf and realizing mid-chant that the game is slipping away. Hold it for Burrow, taking the field with a plate in his shoe and the veteran's calm in his cadence. Hold it for a defense turning desperation into strategy. And hold it for a kicker hitting 6 field goals like a metronome while the rest of the game reads like a fever dream. This wasn't about a single hero. It was about a team fixing itself in pieces. A quarterback returning to form, a defense choosing to do its job spectacularly, a kicker cashing in methodically. Football is often decided by the small, ugly things: turnovers, tackles in the red zone, a defensive hand on the football. And on this night, Cincinnati did the small things so loudly it sounded like a declaration. The Bengals didn't just win a game, they reclaimed a type of identity: messy, opportunistic, and dangerous when it decides to be. You ever show up to a comeback movie expecting the lead to carry the load, and then the side character you forgot about becomes the unexpected hero? That was Thursday night in Baltimore. Joe Burrow came back from turf toe limbo, sure, but the real headline was a Bengals defense that remembered how to bite. Cincinnati forced 5 turnovers. Evan McPherson kicked like a man with a personal vendetta against uprights, and the Bengals walked out with a 32-14 win that smelled a lot like a reset. Let's start with the obvious. Joe Burrow. The guy limped into the stadium wearing a carbon fiber plate in his left cleat, which he took off between series to swap into something more comfortable, and still managed to play like a guy who missed practice, but not instincts. He finished 24 for 46 for 261 yards and 2 third-quarter touchdowns that actually felt like the breathing room Cincinnati needed. He didn't fake his way through it. He got hit, he improvised, and he hit the throws that counted. But if you walked away thinking this was only a Burrow returns, offense functions night, you missed the bigger arc. This game was a defensive clinic with a comedic timing element. The Bengals had allowed 32.7 points per game coming into the week.